I'm most pleased to join you all in honoring tonight's most deserving Jim and Lynn Moroney Award recipient, Mr. Luis Barbero. And I ask his classmate, his longtime friend, George Cruz, to please come to the podium at this time to make the introduction.
I'm not a talker. And let's begin. Father Abbot Peter, Father Abbot Emeritus Dennis, Father Paul, Mr. and Mrs. Jim and Barbara Moroney, ladies, gentlemen, and my brothers of the class of 1991. It is so wonderful to see you all here tonight as we celebrate Luis Barbero. It is also great to see Luis's brothers and their wives gathered in one place, as so rarely happens these days due to Bernardo's service in the U.S. Army. Most importantly, I would like to acknowledge the presence of their mother, Mrs. Isabel Barbero, who joins us this evening all the way from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Señora Barbero, bienvenida. Qué gusto me da que usted está aquí con nosotros para saludar a su hijo y a nuestro amigo Luis. And for those that don't speak Spanish, I said, Ms. Barbero, I bid you welcome, and I'm very happy that you're here with us to celebrate your son and our friend, Luis. So one of the first persons that I contacted regarding the fact that Luis would receive the Moroney Award was his brother, Gustavo, class of 93. And my text to him reads, "He may have told you, but knowing Luis, he hasn't said anything to anyone. He's getting the Moroney Award at the dinner in January." And Gustavo immediately replied with two simple words, and he said, "For what?" And so I believe that's my job here tonight, to explain as best I can, for what? And so if you'll indulge me, I'm going to take you on a journey that's taken me 35 plus years and counting in the making, and I'm going to do my best to try to shrink that for everybody, all right? So I met Luis when we were approximately 10 years old, right around 1983, and we were both altar boys at Our Lady of Perpetual Help Church in Dallas near Left Field, where both our families attended Mass. And you could always count on Luis to pick up where you faltered if you forgot to ring the bells or light the candles. He was always there right behind you to take care of things. So let's fast forward to 86, where Luis had been attending Cistercian since the second form, and I took the entrance exam in 86, and it was by the grace of God and my parents' prayers that my number 2 pencil just marked just enough correct answers for me to get in and be admitted to this place that would transform my life. And so there I was at opening ceremony with everyone else, blazer, tie, the crest that we all know and love, and it was great. The next day I show up to the first day of class, and what am I wearing? The blazer and the tie and the crest, and no one else is wearing the blazer and the tie and the crest, and I kind of felt lost, and I think Luis saw that, and he came over to me and said, "You don't have to wear the blazer and tie every day, unless you want to." So, instead of making fun of the new guy that didn't read the little paragraph that said what to wear every day to school, Luis just kind of went over and helped out a friend in need, and here we are almost 40 years later, he's still helping me out with direction and guidance. So let's fast forward again to 1990 or 91, and we are seniors in high school. It's a new decade, right? Grunge is on the horizon, and we're each deciding on what the fall will bring. Where are we going to continue our lives, our educations? And before I continue, I need to stop and say a footnote. Frank Fehrenbach recently reminded us of Luis's high school exploits, which included being an integral part of Cistercian's soccer team, which won the SPC championship in 1991. And I had forgotten that our class, was so full of such amazing athletic talent. Frank, thank you for reminding us. And then I remembered something, and I dug up this old T-shirt from the fall of 1990. I don't know if you can see it, but this is state champs football, 1990. Only one we've ever won. Now, in reality, neither one of those championships happened. But it was thanks to great coaches like Saeed Bakbardani, Bob Hauser, Mike Washburn, Jeff Bontrager, and of course Tom Hillary that made us feel like we could win anything. So back to senior year, right? And where are we going? Frank, he's going to Penn. Billy Churchill probably had the best nickname of anyone in our class. And I think he took it a little bit too literally. So Surfing Billy Churchill's going west. He's going to Santa Clara. It's going to do great things. Chris Stewart's staying here. He's going to make his mark at SMU, not just in undergrad, but also in graduate school in that very fine joint MFA MBA program. And that's kind of been done very well for him and all of us. Sanjay, Terry, TK Brown. I'm just going to name the guys that are here. They're going to College Station. Joe Shelton's also going east and a little bit north. And he's going to some school called Harvard. No, I don't know if you've heard of it. Angel Gomez is going to head right to the middle of the country, going to St. Louis to attend Wash U. And Sean at this time, Sean Phillips right there, he knows he's playing soccer, he just doesn't know where. All right? But he's going to the state of Indiana. But is he going to end up in Bloomington or South Bend? We're kind of undecided at this point. But he ends up making the right decision, right, AJ? And so there we go. James McDermott, not to be outdone, is going to Davidson in North Carolina, and he also, like Sean, who went to school to play soccer and be the goalkeepers, James McDermott was also a member of a Division I NCAA men's swimming and diving team at Davidson. So congratulations, James. No one knew that. And of course, we have Shane Steinke who's here with us. Shane, who is the boy who, at the tender age of 12, had already earned his Eagle Scout. And who does that? 12 years old. I think I was worried about my BMX when I was 12 years old. So Shane gets appointed to the Air Force Academy and has just recently retired as a colonel. It's amazing. So back to Luis. Right? Sorry. Back to Luis. Where's Luis going? Luis actually, like I followed him to Cistercian, he's going to follow me to Southwestern. And there we are in Georgetown, Texas. Right? And as we get there, his brother Ignacio is a senior, and he's making our transition to college quite easy the first semester, but not so easy the second semester as we decide to pledge his fraternity, and it kind of for 3 months wasn't so easy for him. So 3 years later, Luis is set to graduate, right? 3 years later, not 4 like the rest of us, but 3 years. And whereas my plan was to take the cool and collective 4 years, and if I needed to take another one, I didn't, but I got out in 4 years. But Luis was focused and on a fast track, but not because he wanted to be, rather because he knew that the sooner he finished school, the quicker he would be able to help his family in their time of need. As you see, their father, Mr. Victorio Barbera, was battling cancer, and with 4 boys in school, and if one of them could graduate and help out the family, that was what he needed to do. And as always, Luis made the adult and mature decision at that young age of 20 to finish. So anyway, it was during this time that Luis was, becoming Luis. He would continue to make mature and adult decisions while the rest of our class was thinking about that glorious, glorious senior year of college, right? And what lay ahead. Luis was entrenched in daily commutes and deciding on which healthcare plan to choose and all this sorts of stuff that we didn't have to worry about for another several years. It was also during this time that Luis, started complaining about things. And one member of our class, as we hung out one summer, said, do you guys remember when we were 15 and Luis was 50? And of course, this makes sense because if you look back on one of the quotes in our senior year yearbook, Luis borrowed a quote from an American publisher and author, William Feather, that said, "If a man smiles at home, somebody is sure to ask him for money." So he's earning a living, right? And during this time, he's owned a few cars, maybe a boat or two, and decided to begin investing in a little real estate. But as he was acquiring the material things, he also remained true to his nature. And let's see, sorry, I missed my spot. And his principles. He began donating blood at the Car Blood Care Center, and when they didn't allow him to donate any more blood because he was going too often, he said, "Well, what can I do now?" And they said, "Well, you can donate plasmas." He was going blood, plasma every week. It was amazing. He was on the diamond list. He was getting swag. And this guy's getting sweatshirts, mugs, chairs, and it's amazing. Free trips to wherever he wanted to go because he was getting so much. But he was saving lives at the same time. And let's not forget the times around this time he also grew his hair out several times. It was down to there, and he would chop it off and grow it again and chop it off. And then, of course, it was to donate, not just for him, but we'll get back to that. As one friend of Luis recently commented regarding his love of cars and driving, "Luis has always loved cars. When I first met the then 20-something Luis, I experienced one of the most terrifying times of my life." Luis was driving his beloved Camaro, and while I held on for dear life, he demonstrated his mastery of rapid accelerations, rapid lane changes, and the ability to share the personal space of every other car on the road. It should be noted that he never needed to decelerate due to the lane changes and space sharing. Luis will deny that he was taking any undue risk, but he was legendary among anyone that's ridden with him. End quote. So Luis was and continues to be very famous for having the uncanny ability to diagnose and fix just about any automobile problem. In fact, he even diagnosed a problem via telephone one time. He said, "Hello, Luis, my car's messing up." He's like, "All right, well, turn it on. Rev it a couple times. Oh yeah, that's the Fetzer valve or whatever." He was right. Great. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit more to 2001, and Luis is gonna find a home at St. Monica. And he did so not necessarily due to any particular priest or parishioner that was already there. Rather, he was recovering from knee surgery, and it was easier to get to and from St. Monica than it was to get to and from all those stairs at UD. But what a marvelous moment of providence that was for him, as Luis would eventually become what I imagine to be one of the most active and involved members of St. Monica over the past nearly 2 decades. And at St. Monica, he would become an extraordinary minister of Holy Communion. He sponsored multiple persons going through RCIA, and he befriended some elderly parishioners whom he drove to Mass every Sunday morning. And not just every Sunday morning for a month or two. This is years. He would go and pick them up, get them to Mass, and get them home. Years. He began volunteering for the Bishop's Pro-Life Dinner, and due to the fact that he has a Suburban, they still call him today. And every now and then they'll call and say, "Hey, Luis, can you move a washer and dryer from Plano to Pleasant Grove?" And this is all for the CPLC's Project Gabriel, which finds these donations and free, if not very low income apartments for mothers who decide not to terminate pregnancies. And from time to time, when he gets this call, he'll say, "Yes, I'm free tomorrow." Then he'll call me and say, "Can you help me move a washer and dryer?" And it turns out that it's not just a washer and dryer, but it's a bed and a lamp and all sorts of other stuff. And the one thing he fails to mention is that, he says, "Hey, can you see if that dryer, if the plug fits in there?" And I'm like, "All right." And I go back there and I almost get electrocuted. And to this day, that's still sticks with me. I'm losing hair. In 2003 at St. Monica, he joined the Stephen Ministry upon hearing Monsignor Myers announce that St. Monica would expand their existing pastoral care programs for persons who are facing a life crisis. And here we are 16 years later, and Luis is not only still involved with the Stephen Ministry, he's a trainer for persons that want to start up. A couple of years later, in 2006, after much wrangling and arm twisting by me, by the way, he started volunteering at Camp Moss. And Camp Moss is a week-long summer camp for children that are afflicted with a cardiac disease. And he even took that a step further, heading up a team that transports the equipment to camp a couple days before the kids even show up. And he's been able to wrangle me into that one too, so and in 2009 at St. Monica, he joined the Knights of Columbus and served as an officer, and recently attained the rank of 4th degree. During this time, Luis has also remained dedicated to Cistercian, serving as not only the president of the Lima Association, but offering his house for our reunion in 2006, and I'm trying to convince him to offer it again in 2021 for our 30th, and we'll see if you guys can talk him into it. Let's go. So here we are, 2010, 2012, 2013, charmed life, right? He's got stability, career. Oh, by the way, Luis started working at a company back then. That job that he got when he was becoming Luis, he's still there. Same, who can say that, right? We were talking about this. How many people can say that these days? So you've got stability, health, strong faith, career, family in the same city, friends, the ability to travel around the country and internationally, things we dream of, just all that niceness. And then Luis found out that he was diagnosed with cancer and would decide to begin an aggressive form of chemotherapy, which would deal him a severe blow. But as has been described, Luis remains steadfast in his life and in his faith. He would rarely miss the opportunity to continue his schedule, even though those around us could tell that it was a struggle from time to time. And he was reluctant always, as always, to ask for or receive favors from anyone, but would eventually accept that moving in with great friends for even a short while was the right thing to do. And of course, I wouldn't let him skip our 15th college reunion in 2016. I said, "You're coming, I don't care." A person close to Luis recently commented to me, Luis has always taken his faith seriously, but it really became evident when he began to spend some serious time in personal Bible reading. He is a humble man, never believing himself to be better than any other, but his core is in his faith in Jesus Christ. Whenever he had been presented with a life challenge that would have caused others to crumble, he just leaned into the promises of his faith and marched ahead with a genuine smile for those around him who were hurting for him. So spending such an enormous amount of time on the road and in the air or a tailgate or wherever over the past 3+ decades has allowed my bond of friendship with Luis to become that more of family and beyond. And a former executive of his company said, and I'll paraphrase, when Luis showed up on his first day of work, he was this big-eyed kid. And from outward appearance, you thought he wouldn't know how to do anything. But it didn't take long to realize that he was honest, intelligent, and he was uncomplicated. And when you surround yourself with people like that, well, success is on the horizon. I have no doubt there are business owners and CFOs and CEOs among us here tonight, and I thank you for being here, and I hope you make it a point to be here every year. And I want you to imagine that when you show up to the office on Monday morning, it's a day and a half away, and you meet the newest member of your accounting team, and he's 5'8", he's 130 pounds, and he was born in 1998, and he graduated high school in 2015, and he graduated college just a few months ago, and has zero experience in your industry, none. How much would you wager that that person will be integral to the continued success of the company in the year 2042? Because that's Luis. So it is really great to have better than a third of our class here tonight. And I know the question that we were all asking ourselves as we saw each other tonight was, how did we get this old? Well, gentlemen, we're not quite 50 yet, but it sure is closer than we want to admit, you know? But if over the next 3 to 4 years we can attain the maturity and the adulthood that Luis had when he was 50, then I think we're on the right track. And so it is my privilege and great honor to ask Luis Barbero to come accept the 2019 Jim and Lynn Moroney Award. And this award is given annually to an alumnus whose spiritual commitment to Cistercian is very much aflame, and whose dedicated work on behalf of the Cistercian community and family enkindles our hope for the future. Luis's efforts, like the 3 buildings represented above, stand as constant reminders of the value of contributions by alumni to Cistercian. Luis.
I don't like microphones. Thanks, George, for all that you do. I want to thank Father Abbott, Abbot Peter, and Father Paul for allowing us to be here tonight and have this event. So I guess you did hear, George and I go way back, even before Cistercian. So I started a little bit before George, but we were always pretty close. As if 4 boys were not enough, my mother still refers to George as her other son. So at times our busy lives have diverged a bit, but we can pretty much pick up right where we left off, I think. So he was the obvious choice to speak to you tonight, and thanks again. So we actually sat down a little over a week ago to get ready for tonight, and you know, we only knew for a couple months, so so we had kind of an interview over a bottle of wine. There may have been more than one bottle. In any case, no pun intended. I was puzzled at first why George wanted to talk. Like, what could he know? What could he want to know about me that he didn't already know? He knows me better than anybody. What did he need to find out? The whole reason I asked him to come up here tonight, so I wouldn't have to worry about it. Like, he'd take care of it. He knows me. But nevertheless, I was happy to say yes and have him come over as an excuse to have some wine together. So George came over, and our talk was different from any other talks we've ever had. So he asked me a lot of questions. It was like an interview, but he wasn't asking me what I had done. He knew the stuff I had done. He's been involved in a lot of it. I dragged him along on some of it. He's dragged me along on some of his stuff. So, but what he asked me was, how did I start doing this or that? How did I get connected with it? Why did I do it? Why did I continue doing it? So, obviously the activities were notable, and thank you again, George. And I guess some of those things are the basis of the recognition I'm receiving tonight. But the compelling part for us, for him, was how and why. So how and why did I get here? And for me, the simple answer is that I've been abundantly blessed, as you've heard. And of course, one of the blessings that most people here can relate to is Cistercian. And make no mistake, there were moments in my years at Cistercian when it didn't feel like a blessing. There's a lot of homework, exams, finding yearbook photos, spending long nights in the dark room. And obviously none of these perceived adversities were unique to Cistercian. That's the typical problems that middle school and high school kids face. But, you know, having manifested themselves while I was at Cistercian, it could have easily tainted the whole experience. But rest assured that years of reflection since then have excuse me, have shown me that the fruits of whatever momentary toil we endured while there, that it truly was a blessing and is still a blessing. So my fellow alums and I could spend hours and days recounting stories from those years. But I think for me, it's become more interesting to step back and understand why Cistercian is so special. And so pondering that question over the last few weeks have revealed to me that Cistercian is not special because of the unique buildings, many of which have been transformed since our time there, or the hilly campus with its tendency to flood, or the curriculum that challenges students unlike any place else. But it's the people that make Cistercian special. The faculty, the staff, and of course the monks. So as I ponder that further, I'm led to the realization that the most significant blessings I've received in my life in general are the people I've encountered. Some people maybe only briefly, and others have remained in my life and are still a part of my life. But the impact they may have had or are having is not a function of the length of the encounter. Important people, impactful people, stay with you wherever, whether they remain present to you or not. Now I'm confident that the people who impacted me at Cistercian had a profound effect on other students whose lives they touched as well. That's just the kind of people they are. No one will soon forget people like Father Bernard, Mr. Walter, Father Dennis. These are names familiar to most of us, and I start out with these names because each of these men at one time or another was form master to our class. Not too many alumni can claim multiple form masters, but circumstances allowed us the chance to have 3. And I'm so grateful that Mr. Walter and Father Dennis could be here tonight. And I'm sure Father Bernard would have been here if he could have been. You know he loves a party. But I want all of them to know that they will hold permanent places of prominence in my memories and in my heart because they were impactful on my life. Form masters obviously make a big impression on the students in the class that they guide, but they also make a connection with the families, parents and the siblings. So since my brothers Ignacio and Gustavo were also at Cistercian, my family and I had the blessing of experiencing the form master relationship with 2 other illustrious names familiar to most of the Cistercian community. Father Henry, who was form master at Ignacio's class of '88, and Father Rock, who's form master at Gustavo's class of '93. So as I mention these names of these great Cistercians who touched my family most closely, Father Henry, Father Dennis, Father Rock, Father Bernard, I can't help but be reminded of all those Hungarians who arrived in Dallas so many years ago and built Cistercian for us. How fortunate we were to have them take part in our formation. From these great men, I got more than just a desire to hone my skills at imitating a thick Hungarian accent. I got to see examples of men of unwavering faith who faced tremendous adversity and through it all, humbly lived out their lives in prayer and service to others. The character of Cistercian for years was shaped by these Hungarian men. And for some of us, it's sad to see the era of the Hungarians pass away. I'm sad because future generations of students and their families at Cistercian won't get to experience these great men or their accents. But I know that the priests who populate the monastery now will continue to shape the character of Cistercian, built on the strong foundations established before them. Cistercian is, of course, more than just the people who built it and who live and work there. It includes the students, the families, past and present, and all the people who've cultivated this great community. Jim Moroney valued this community and saw fit to honor his parents by naming this event after them. His parents, too, recognized the value of the formation we received there. At your tables, there's cards which list the names of past recipients of this award. And I'm honored to personally know many of the names on that list. These are men that we all can look to as examples of how to live and enhance our community. Men like Paul Tomaso, whose friendship, support, and generosity have been shared without hesitation and have seen me through trying times. Thank you, Paul and Patty. The list of award recipients will continue to grow, and rightly so. But I'm grateful to any men who are part of my life, many of whom could be up here receiving this recognition. I'm grateful to George and all my classmates, particularly the ones who traveled to be here tonight, and those who, though not here, have sent me notes of congratulations. The list of invaluable connections I've made at Cistercian, or as a result of Cistercian, could be the topic of a whole talk in and of itself. It'd be hard to fit on a single card. Suffice to say, I've had a lot of help getting where I am. Now, none of this would have even been possible without the foresight and sacrifice of my parents. My mother instinctively knew that surrounding yourself with good people makes you better. So she wanted my brothers and me to have a Catholic education, to make sure we had the tools to succeed in life. I know she is immensely proud of her 4 boys, and what mother wouldn't be? She raised an attorney, a CPA, pediatric cardiac nurse, and an Army officer. I am proud of my brothers as well, but for more reasons than just the career achievements. My brothers are family men, men of faith, men engaged in the community, men who are dependable, and frankly, they're men who I like to be with because they make me better. We still argue, as their wives I'm sure can attest, but that's what brothers do. As you've heard, I've also been abundantly blessed in my working career. Most of my career has been spent working for the same company, something all too rare in today's world. But it was time well spent. I was fortunate to have 2 men of integrity leading that company through most of my years there. They believed in me and were purposeful in their efforts to educate me on how to run a business. What I learned from them was that if you recognize the value of the people in the organization and treat them with loyalty and dignity, just like a family, results will naturally follow. So even in the business world, surrounding yourself with good people leads to good things. During my time at Cistercian, there was a time when Father Bernard recounted the story of his escape from Hungary. I don't remember when he did it, what the occasion was that he was speaking to us, nor do I remember any detail of his story. But I vividly remember there was a chalkboard. I'm dating myself there. Chalkboard's good, I'm not using it. He came in and he wrote one word on the board, a word that George used earlier, providence. As he told the story, every time he reached some pivotal moment in this harrowing story, he pointed back to that word, providence. Now, whenever I struggle, I try to remember that word and pray that God will provide. What I find now is that I'm not just praying for circumstances or outcomes. I'm praying for an encounter, for a person that will get me through, or people that will get me through. Because when you're surrounded by good people, you become better yourself. So I'm blessed to be surrounded by good people, which means I'm set up to succeed. There's one more thing I want to share, and it's a lesson that comes from Jesus. I love when Jesus teaches in parables because they're so memorable. The stories and lessons stick with me. And one of my favorites is the parable of the talents in Matthew chapter 25. In it, Jesus is teaching us that we're called to take what we've been given and make something out of it, not bury our gifts in the sand for fear of losing them. I think a big part of the journey of life is learning how to use what we've been given in the best way possible. I'm still learning that. I don't think I will or should ever stop figuring that out. But at least for tonight, I can pause a moment and acknowledge that some people who I respect and admire think I'm on the right track. So I will persevere by the grace of God and with the support of the good people by whom I am surrounded. Thank you.